Tonight, a little boy should be celebrating his 4th birthday. Instead, he's the subject of an intense multi-state search. Many of you have heard this story about Abdul Wahhaj, supposedly taken from his mother by his father last year. Siraj Wahhaj and 4 other adults were arrested in a compound in New Mexico. Police described the conditions as deplorable, even compared it to a third world country. All 5 were charged with child abuse, and Siraj also charged with child abduction. 11 children were taken from the compound wearing rags with no shoes, the children ranging in age from 1 to 15. But Abdul was not found with those 11 children. Those who were rescued were taken into protective custody in New Mexico.
Our focus is really on getting children into home-like settings as quickly as we possibly can. We also, of course, attempt to keep siblings together when possible. We are doing what we can to meet the safety and well-being needs of these children.
And tonight, little Abdul is still missing, and as Hope Ford found out, this case could have been over months ago.
There were so many times police were so close to finding Siraj and possibly Abdul. In fact, Siraj stared down police 12 days after he disappeared with his son. December 13th, 2017, less than 2 weeks after Siraj is accused of leaving Georgia with his son Abdul. 200 miles away in Chilton County, a trooper responds to a single vehicle crash. The trooper finds Siraj, Lucas Morton, and 7 children in the car. Siraj tells the trooper they're going on a camping trip in New Mexico. The trooper finds ammunition, guns, but no camping gear. At the time, there's no Amber Alert issued for Abdul because his mother and father are still married and share joint custody. Instead, a pickup order was issued, which is only made available to in-state law enforcement. So the trooper in Alabama let them go, and that was the first missed opportunity. Siraj settled in Taos County, New Mexico sometime in early 2018. His family member, Lucas, builds a compound on the property of Jason Badger. Lucas believes he's building it on his property, which is next door. In February, Badger believes he sees a boy resembling Abdul, but doesn't realize the boy is missing from Georgia until May, another missed opportunity. On June 12th, Badger files an eviction notice to remove them from his property, but he's already talked to Morton about a property exchange. So the eviction notice is dismissed by the courts. And that's the 3rd time authorities were so close to finding Abdul. Finally, on August 2nd, police received images of texts sent from one of the women inside the compound saying they are starving and in need of food and water. Then all 5 adults were arrested, 11 children taken into protective custody, but Abdul is still missing. Siraj is in court Tuesday in New Mexico, and police there plan to hold a press conference talking about the search for Abdul.